How World War I changed the map of the world forever. In 1914, a single assassination triggered a war that would destroy 4 empires, redraw entire continents, and plant the seeds for the next global conflict. But what most people don't realize is this: the modern political world was shaped by World War I. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated in Sarajevo by a young nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. What seemed like a regional political crisis quickly spiraled out of control. Europe at the time was divided into powerful alliances. On one side was the Triple Entente, Britain, France, and Russia. On the other was the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. When Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, alliances activated like falling dominoes. Within weeks, nearly all of Europe was at war. Soon the conflict expanded beyond Europe, pulling in colonies and global powers. It became the first true world war. By the time the war ended in 1918, more than 16 million people were dead. But the destruction did not end on the battlefield. The political consequences would reshape the globe. Before the war, much of Europe and the Middle East was controlled by massive empires. The German Empire dominated Central Europe. The Austro-Hungarian Empire ruled over a mix of ethnic groups across Eastern Europe. The Ottoman Empire controlled much of the Middle East, and the Russian Empire stretched across Eastern Europe and deep into Asia. By 1918, all 4 had collapsed. Germany was defeated and politically unstable. Austria-Hungary completely dissolved, breaking into smaller nations like Austria and Hungary. The Ottoman Empire fell apart, losing control of its Arab territories. And in Russia, revolution erupted. The Tsar was overthrown, and the Soviet Union was born. The old imperial world order had vanished almost overnight. One of the most significant changes happened in the Middle East. As the Ottoman Empire weakened, Britain and France secretly negotiated how to divide its territory. This secret agreement, known as the Sykes-Picot Agreement, carved the region into zones of European control. Borders were drawn not based on cultural or religious unity, but on political interests. New nations like Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon were created from these divisions. Different ethnic and religious groups were forced into shared national borders. Rival communities that had long histories of tension were now expected to function as single states. More than a century later, many conflicts in the Middle East can be traced back to these artificial borders. Meanwhile, in Europe, the war officially ended with the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. The treaty placed full blame for the war on Germany. It forced Germany to pay massive reparations, reduce its military to almost nothing, and surrender significant territory. The German economy collapsed. Hyperinflation spiraled out of control. Savings became worthless. Unemployment soared. Public anger and humiliation spread across the country. The treaty was meant to secure peace. Instead, it created bitterness and instability. In that climate of anger, extremist political movements gained support. Among them was the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler. The consequences of the Treaty of Versailles directly contributed to the outbreak of World War II just 20 years later. World War I also led to the creation of entirely new nations. Poland reappeared on the map after more than a century of being divided between empires. Yugoslavia was formed, combining multiple ethnic groups into one state. Czechoslovakia was created from former Austro-Hungarian territory. But many of these new nations were fragile. They contained diverse populations with different languages, religions, and identities. Tensions remained beneath the surface. The map looked new, but instability continued. World War I was often called the war to end all wars. Instead, it reshaped global power structures and created unresolved tensions that would explode again in 1939. The fall of empires, the redrawing of the Middle East, the punishment of Germany, the rise of new political ideologies. All of these developments shaped the 20th century and continue to influence international politics today. Modern conflicts, shifting alliances, and global rivalries did not emerge randomly. They were built upon decisions made in the aftermath of World War I. The modern world did not simply evolve. It was forged in the ashes of 1918. And to understand today's global tensions, we must first understand how World War I changed the map of the world forever.